This is the most realistic wilderness survival I've seen. 10 people were dropped off in Labrador, Canada, including both survival experts and novices. The last person standing wins $500,000. Let's see how this season's contestants perform. The first contestant, Carla, is a primitive skills coach who lives a self-sufficient life in a yurt. Whether it's making fire, cooking, or treating illnesses, she relies on herself. She joined the competition to win prize money to build a wilderness survival skills school, fulfilling her long-held dream. Upon landing, Carl saw dark clouds approaching and quickly set up a temporary shelter. While looking for a suitable campsite, she collected dry grass for tinder. The wind picked up, and she hurriedly set up her tarp. She regretted it the next day as the black flies were fierce, leaving bites all over her chest. Carl packed up to move. Open spaces and overly dense forests were unsuitable. She followed an animal trail in the grass, which led to a clearing where she spotted a grouse. Her first arrow missed, but she pursued and caught it with a second shot. By the second day, she had meat to eat, easing her nerves and boosting her confidence. She felt capable of winning as she savored the simple grouse meat. Another contestant, Benji, a hunting guide skilled in making traps and fire by friction, has over 30 years of experience with traditional archery. He believed he could take down a black bear in Labrador. He came to break Roland's record of surviving 100 days. His starting point was near a river suitable for fishing but not for setting up camp. As storm clouds approached, he entered the forest to find a campsite and kept an eye on available resources like berries. While picking berries, he heard a squirrel and expertly shot it down. Before he could set up his tent, heavy rain began to fall. Luckily, one of his 10 chosen items was a raincoat, preventing a cold that could force him to withdraw. After the rain, Benji made a fishing rod with a 10-meter-long cord. By the 4th day, he noticed many small fish trapped in the river at low tide. Local laws only allowed fishing with rods and nets. Otherwise, he would have made a net to catch more efficiently. Using the simplest rod, Benji effortlessly caught 12 small fish, compensating for their size with quantity. Returned to camp to use a pot lid as a griddle. Fry the trout until cooked. Among the 10 items Benji chose, there is Himalayan rock salt. He believes that consuming enough salt is as important as having sufficient food. The cooked fish tastes like salty popcorn, sizzling with a golden brown color. The flavor should be decent. Contestant Jessie is also a survival coach, mastering various skills. She currently runs an outdoor survival school for women. Money is not an issue for her. She joined the competition to test herself. She too began by scouting in the woods, looking for resources and a campsite. Passing by a quiet stream, she saw fresh bear tracks on the bank. Jessie did not want to be woken by that bear in the middle of the night, so she found a distant spot to secure her tarp. She just needed to pile up some branches underneath. However, the inevitable happened. That night, she heard a bear roaring outside the camp, estimating it to be within 50 meters. Jessie was not very scared, but rather pitied the bear, which might become a victim of her arrows. The 4th contestant, Juan, grew up in the forest, chasing rabbits and trapping snakes. Recently, he underwent a solo survival challenge to prepare for this competition. He wants the $500,000 prize to buy land and build a house for his girlfriend. While searching for a campsite, he also found fresh bear droppings. Juan could hardly hide his smile, seeing it as a ticket to victory. He planned to hunt a bear and eat it for a month, by which time he might be close to winning. After finding a campsite, he did not want to spend much effort on the shelter. He just made a frame with logs, secured the tarp, and sealed the ends with branches for a permanent shelter. Before the competition, he drank milk and ate olive oil daily, gaining 60 pounds, thinking if he couldn't get a bear, he could survive on his fat reserves for a month. Juan heard squirrels chattering in the woods. When he approached, the squirrels, sensing danger, disappeared. Returning to camp, he pushed aside some saplings and found a pile of discarded tin cans. The rules allow contestants to use anything they find. Juan assembled a few cans into a bacon stove. Then he took out the fireproof material from his leggings, sewed it onto the cut-open tarp, and extended the bacon without worrying about burning the tarp. Juan also gathered a lot of clay to seal the outside of the stove. He was busy until evening before everything was done. Jacques is the youngest contestant this season, a glacier guide who often encounters bears and was even attacked by a grizzly. He became interested in jungle survival skills at age 11. Now, whether building shelters or hunting and fishing, he is very skilled. He currently lives in an RV with his girlfriend and joined the competition to win the prize money to buy a decent house. Jacques' luck is incredible. While patrolling the woods, he found an old animal trap but wasn't sure if it still worked. On the fourth day, before he even got dressed, he spotted a squirrel outside his camp while his stomach was growling. He shot an arrow at the squirrel, killing it instantly. As he went to retrieve his prey, he turned and saw a grouse in a tree. His luck was unstoppable as he shot the grouse down too. While others might spend hours in the woods without catching anything, Jacques had prey delivered right to his doorstep. Enjoying squirrel and grouse stew made his days delightful, which would surely make other contestants envious. The sixth contestant, Igor, spent 4 days looking for a campsite but ended up right where he started. With Armenian, Egyptian, French, and Russian heritage, Igor learned archery as a child and once hunted a half-ton muskox. He joined the competition to test his skills and improve his family's life with the prize money. Affected by the tides of Labrador, the river near his area had lots of seaweed hanging on the branches. Igor gathered some to cook, and although he hadn't found protein yet, the seaweed would stave off hunger for a few days. As the first Asian contestant to live alone in the wilderness, Tamian served 6 years in the military, specializing in cold weather warfare and survival. After his service, he became a general practitioner. Confident in his willpower, he joined the competition to pay off his student loans and renovate his home. Tamian had his own ideas about building a permanent shelter. He started by constructing a frame with canvas and logs, then dug a fire pit. Knowing the design needed for a warm shelter, he made sure the pit was at least half a meter deep and divided into 3 parts for the smoke inlet, smoke outlet, and furnace. He then found some river mud, squeezed out the air by pounding it, and smoothed it over the fire pit. After lighting a fire inside to harden the mud, all that was left was to refine the shelter for the winter. Contestant Terry, a commercial fisherman, was drawn by the wilderness of Alaska. Working only 4 months a year, he spent the rest in nature. He joined the competition to see how far he could go. Terry had set up a temporary camp but had not yet started a fire. He collected tinder yesterday but unfortunately left it outside where it got wet from the rain. With over 100 rainy days a year in Labrador, finding dry tinder in the woods was challenging. Terry chopped open a tree trunk and carved out a few wood pieces. After struggling with a flint, he finally started a fire. A few sips of hot tea made him feel much better. It was time to build a long-term shelter. What he thought would be a massive project turned out to be just sawing a few small trees and creating an inverted V structure covered with a tarp. Simplicity at its finest. After finishing, he went fishing in the river with his rod and soon caught a trout, a perfect size for a meal to replenish the energy spent building the camp. Tom is a farmer owning over 300 acres of land, influenced by his father's profession. Each summer, he had the chance to encounter various wild animals in Africa, learning hunting and tracking skills. He felt his observational skills were superior to other contestants. These days, he survived on berries, which he grew tired of, and now sought protein in the forest. However, the dense vegetation made moving around not as easy as he imagined. In a new area, hearing many squirrels around, he drew his bow and shot one in the heart. Although he apologized to the squirrel, his processing speed was quick. He started by eating the squirrel's head, not liking it much but knowing it contained heart-healthy fatty acids. The meat satisfied his body's need for protein and fats. Finally, Adam, a treehouse carpenter with superior hands-on skills compared to other contestants, had also sailed across the Pacific Ocean in 90 days, showing his courage and capacity to endure solitude. Hunting and fishing had always been his passions. He joined the contest to win the prize money to improve his family's life. Adam planned to build an improved lean-to cabin at a chosen spot. He first constructed a frame with logs, then layered the roof covered with a tarp with spruce branches like tiling. The sides were secured with wood pressing against moss, enhancing waterproofing and insulation. He reserved a space for a door and a window, completing his permanent shelter. After finishing, he needed to hunt for food. Searching the woods, he only found fresh bear droppings, which he was glad to see, as killing a black bear could shift his situation from food scarcity to surplus. After some time, he reached a clearing at the mountain summit. Just as Adam was about to reflect, He saw a grouse fly into a nearby forest and chased after it with an arrow. Unfortunately, he aimed a few centimeters too low, and the arrow disappeared. While searching, he encountered the same fleeing grouse. Despite worrying about missing and losing another arrow, his hunger got the best of him. He drew his bow and aimed all in one go, but missed again. Both arrows fell into a thick layer of moss, making them likely hard to retrieve. Since Adam failed to catch the grouse, he decided to try fishing instead. He found a straight tree trunk, stripped off the bark to use as a fishing rod, and cut an eyelet from his tarp to secure the auxiliary line. After casting his line, he quickly hooked a trout. His luck and resources were outstanding. Over the next few hours, he consistently caught fish, overcoming his earlier misfortune with hunting grouse. He caught over a dozen trout, happily showing his catch to the camera. 10 smaller fish were cooked in a pot, while the largest one was smoked for preservation. That evening, Adam had a very satisfying meal. Tom wanted to make a decorative streamer for his fish hook. When he learned that the competition only allowed fly fishing rods and nets, he dyed a bright green feather, cut it in front of the camera, and tied it next to the hook with pink nylon rope. When it came time to test his creation, the fly did not disappoint. In just 50 minutes, he caught 3 trout, totaling over a kilogram. He felt hopeful about winning the $500,000 prize. Jacques was undoubtedly the luckiest contestant so far. Like the others, he also fished, but the fish he caught were significantly larger, resembling Arctic chars with robust, brightly colored bodies. Jacques quickly gutted the fish by the river, brought it back to camp, and cooked it over a fire. In just a few minutes, it was ready to eat, very fatty and rich in protein and fat. He was very satisfied with his achievements in hunting and fishing, and his shelter was well built. His only trouble was missing his girlfriend. By day 12, Jacques noticed his body fat reducing rapidly, even though he had the best diet among the contestants, with his weight dropping 10% since the start. As rain seemed imminent, Jacques began splitting wood. During a break, he saw a squirrel in a tree and shot it with precise archery, proving his skill. However, as he waited for the meat to stew, he couldn't smile. He disliked killing animals, which deeply saddened him. Over the next few days, he reflected on his interactions with wildlife, realizing they were all harmful. Combined with missing his girlfriend, he felt staying longer would mean missing out on better moments. Thus, on the morning of the 15th day, he called to withdraw from the competition. He had the best diet and luck, but was the first to leave, showing that youth might not fully appreciate the value of money. Hopefully, Jacques won't regret his decision later. Following his departure, 9 contestants remained. Benji felt the weather was getting colder and decided to build a permanent shelter. He found a flat area near the water, used existing trees as support posts, and tied several logs horizontally to form the main frame. The roof was completed by covering it with a tarp. The rest would be done gradually. Just as Benji lay down to rest, he heard the sound of a squirrel nearby. After locating it, he unhesitatingly drew his bow and shot an arrow. His aim was unmatched. Benji fried the squirrel in a pan, noting while eating that he felt more vibrant here than in his comfortable home life, with no thoughts of quitting. His fishing luck was also excellent, catching 3 fish in a few hours by the river. While others struggled to find meat, he had an excess. Benji used stones to enclose a small area of water to store his food for the next day. He preferred hunting over fishing. Passing through a marsh, he noticed many beaver trails and decided to try an ambush. While looking for a good spot, he saw a beaver in the water ahead and immediately shot an arrow. The arrow grazed the beaver's scalp, but it did not escape far. After struggling in the water and escaping out of sight, Benji searched the area, hoping not to lose the beaver. Unable to find it, he speculated it might have swum to the main river, but saw no body there. He hoped to find the injured beaver the next morning. Though Adam had built a permanent shelter early, the smoke ventilation was poor. He needed to make a fireplace. Lacking suitable rocks, he dug up mud, added chopped weeds and water, and kneaded it to increase plasticity. Using thin tree trunks as main beams and interlacing willow branches, he plastered the mud to form walls. While Adam worked methodically, he heard a noise outside. A grouse perched on a tree branch caused the sound. Having lost arrows while hunting grouse before, Adam feared using his bow again and risked being defenseless against a bear, so he threw a stick, but missed wildly. Adam was too conservative. Without using the bow, catching prey was unlikely. Fortunately, The fireplace was progressing well. The fire dried the mud walls without cracking, and the smoke ventilation improved. After successful fishing, Adam hoped for more success, cut a small piece of his shoe insole, tied it with colored thread to make a fake fly, and cast his line by the river. Expecting bites like before, he was disappointed with no action after hours of effort. Further attempts also ended fruitlessly. Adam thought the river water might be getting colder, which is why the fish weren't biting. He suspected he had fished out the nearby areas. Shifting his focus to hunting due to his deteriorating archery skills, Adam practiced shooting arrows every morning. Today he planned to hunt a black bear, which was active and fat before hibernation. If successful, it would secure his food supply for a long time. On his way, Adam found a large, yellow porcini mushroom, perfect for a soup side dish. After searching the woods for 3 hours without spotting a bear, he encountered a grouse, his old nemesis. This time, Adam didn't miss, and took down the grouse with one shot, making his efforts worthwhile. Back at the shelter, he stuffed the grouse with cranberries and sliced porcini, then cooked it in a pot with water for 20 minutes. The grouse was coated with a thick sauce, and the flavors of the cranberries and porcini permeated the meat, rewarding his palate with each bite. Sitting by the fire and enjoying his meal epitomized his ideal wilderness life. Turning to Jessie, who faced windy and rainy weather in Labrador, she felt insecure under just a tarp, and began building a permanent shelter on a hillside. She fixed logs under trees to outline the walls and leveled the ground by removing part of the slope. The calories needed for such a massive project were enormous, and just foraging for berries wouldn't suffice. In the forest, Jessie saw many squirrels and set wire traps on their active trees. Setting traps saved more energy than hunting with a bow across the hills. She made 15 traps in one go. Just as she sat down to rest, she heard a squirrel and found it had been caught in one of her traps. Surprised by the quick catch, she cleaned the squirrel by the river and stewed it until tender, devouring it as her body had long craved protein. Later, she installed more logs in her shelter, creating a complex structure. Due to the sheer amount of wood needed, Jessie used readily available bark and moss for the walls. Even so, the calorie expenditure was high. Her only source of meat was the wire traps. The next day, another squirrel was caught, but as Jessie approached to retrieve it, a poignant scene unfolded. A companion squirrel came down from a tree, pushed the dead body, and made noises trying to wake it. It lingered sadly before finally leaving. Jessie stood by and witnessed the whole process. Others might have been moved to quit, but Jessie is a survival instructor. Although it made her very sad, she knew this was nature's law of survival, with killing being an inevitable part. Igor cooked another pot of seaweed. These days, he survived on seaweed alone, not catching any fish or hitting any game with his bow. He lost 17 pounds. Without the seaweed, he probably wouldn't have lasted. He planned to build a cabin as a permanent home, choosing a damp location near a water source. Igor intended to lay a log floor in the shelter, choosing logs that weighed 100 pounds each. To prevent future fires, he also planned to strip off the bark, which took about 30 minutes per log. With no solid food supply, the construction of the cabin was far from fast. He was busy until dusk, only managing to complete the base and half of the floor. Igor stared at the camera, pondering how to survive the days ahead, when he saw a grouse land nearby. He quietly approached with his saw and surprisingly killed the grouse with it. The food came so unexpectedly. That evening, Igor roasted the grouse. Its meat was lean, slightly greasy, and not fatty. His hungry stomach finally felt somewhat full, giving him strength for tomorrow's construction. Juan also saw a squirrel from his doorstep but wasn't as lucky as Igor. His arrow missed. He hadn't caught any fish from the river these days and had only eaten one grouse so far. Juan patrolled the woods, hoping to find rabbit traces to set traps, but only saw black bear footprints. Judging from the size of the prints, the bear must have weighed nearly 400 pounds. Juan had long wanted to hunt a bear for his food reserve. Instead of blindly searching, he preferred to wait for prey. He hung the grouse's innards and food scraps in a tin can in midair, waiting for a black bear to come sniffing around so he could shoot it from hiding. He thought the championship was as good as his. Carla hadn't washed her hair in half a month. It was dry and coarse. Today, she specially boiled water. After cleaning her hair, she would continue building her shelter. Carla designed a conical structure, using a digging stick to organize the living space on the ground. She installed several more wooden supports on both sides for stability and tied on the tarp to complete half of the shelter. At night, she lit a fire inside and felt very satisfied with her creation. 17 days into the competition, 9 contestants remained. Benji hit a beaver yesterday. This morning, before dawn, he went to where it was last seen and started searching along the main river. When he saw a clear trail in the bushes, Benji walked over and found the beaver, now completely cold. He estimated the beaver to be around 50 pounds, with each pound of beaver meat averaging 960 calories, a significant gain. Benji does not want to attract the black bear to the camp. After cleaning the beaver innards in the swamp, he finishes the disassembly in the nearby woods. He removes as much fat as possible from the entire beaver and cuts the lean meat into strips. Then he makes a smoking rack, encloses it on 3 sides with branches to lock in the smoke, and places the meat on it for dehydration and antibacterial purposes. Benji believes that if he allocates the portions properly, it should last him a month. Relying solely on this beaver is not enough to ensure victory. Only a black bear would make victory almost certain. Before the competition, he had expressed his desire to surpass Roland's record of surviving 100 days. Roland's black bear hunt had been a topic of long-standing joy among his fans. Benji wants to hunt a black bear to prove his own strength. That evening, Benji fries some minced meat with a pot lid. The taste, resembling the juicy fat of a ribeye steak, exceeds his expectations. The next afternoon, Benji uses the pile of beaver innards as bait and installs a camera nearby to see if it attracts a black bear so he can plan the hunt. By night, Benji is still obsessed with the black bear, thinking about hunting it, eating its meat. Excitingly, a black bear does smell the scent and approaches. What happens next will depend on Benji's actions. Tamian has been continuously improving his shelter and has finally completed it. His energy levels are at a new low, making hunting and foraging a top priority. He notices many squirrel holes in the woods and the ground littered with their gnawed pine cones. Tamian uses these pine cones as bait, setting a spring-loaded rod trap outside the holes. If a squirrel sticks its head in, breaking the inverted balance, it will be caught by the wire. While waiting for the trap to work, he boils the berries he collected into a tea, which tastes fragrantly sweet and sour. Sitting in his shelter, then prepares firewood for the night. Happiness comes unexpectedly when, after chopping enough wood, he hears the sound of a partridge flapping its wings nearby. Looking over, he sees it on a tree just a dozen meters away. Tamian immediately retrieves his bow and arrows from the camp, returns, and hits the partridge with one shot. The injured partridge hangs in the tree, reluctant to come down. Tamian uses a stick to dislodge it, physically overcoming it and showcasing it on camera. He takes it to the river, cleans it, and prepares it on a fire. After eating wild vegetables and berries for several days, he is especially grateful for this barbecue. The moment the meat enters his mouth, he feels completely comfortable. Tamian knows there's another partridge in that area and can now recognize its sounds. With his superb archery skills, he expects the coming days to be better. Let's check on Tom and see how his shelter is doing. Today, he just used some sticks to build a low wall and then went out with his bow and arrows to find food. As he passed through a thicket, he saw a gray crow ahead. Tom shot an arrow without hesitation, and the crow died instantly without knowing what happened. He didn't rush back to start cooking as the small amount of food would barely fill him up. Tom went to the river, plucked a feather from the gray crow to use as a fake fly, and tried to catch a larger trout. He didn't know how long he would have to stand as punishment. Suddenly, he felt a tug on the fishing line. Tom quickly pulled towards the shore. Judging by the splashes, the fish was no less than half a pound. Now Tom could go home for a full meal. The fresh trout was grilled for lunch. He saved the cut-off fish head to make soup with the gray crow in the evening. While waiting for the fish to cook, he laid some pine branches on the ground to serve as a plate. The ritual felt completely satisfying. The cooked fish was tender and juicy. Tom greedily ate bite by bite, and soon only the fish bones were left. Life was exceptionally pleasant compared to Igor's. Igor had spent all his energy building his shelter. Except for catching a partridge on the day he broke ground, he was now trying to fish. Local regulations only allowed fishing with fly rods and nets, neither of which Igor was skilled at. After a long time with no bites, he saw a seal pop up in the water. With seals around, any fish would either be eaten or scared away. Igor moved to another spot but still caught nothing. However, the trip wasn't entirely fruitless as he found a mussel. Igor couldn't wait to start a fire and cooked the mussel in a pile of seaweed. After a week without meat, he tasted the mussel repeatedly before reluctantly throwing away the shell. The next day, Igor ground some charcoal and used his fingers instead of the toothbrush provided by the show. After brushing thoroughly and swallowing it with mouthwash as a morning tea, he believed eating charcoal was good for the stomach. However, given his current state of working hard without proper meals, his stomach wasn't likely doing well. Moreover, building a shelter with sawn wood was exhausting. The discrepancy between his intake and expenditure seemed to be affecting his health. Igor felt his heart beating faster and worried about causing permanent damage to his body. After much internal struggle, he finally chose to call and withdraw from the competition. Terry also suffered greatly. He hadn't had a bowel movement in 12 days and was experiencing dangerous symptoms like dizziness and nausea. That afternoon, he even suffered muscle spasms, stomach cramps, and leg cramps due to malnutrition. Terry hoped to endure a bit longer to see if he could overcome this. Fortunately, after a loud relief, Terry finally managed a bowel movement, feeling completely rejuvenated. All discomfort vanished immediately. The next morning at 5:30 a.m., Terry got up early to head to the riverbank, where beavers were often spotted. He had been observing this spot before dawn for the past 7 to 8 days, waiting for the right moment to use his bow and arrows for food storage. Today, he finally got his chance when an unsuspecting beaver swam within range. An arrow flew across the top left of the screen, followed by splashes in the water. Terry watched from the shore as the injured beaver floated motionless in the middle of the river. After 40 minutes, he confirmed its death. Terry stripped down to his underwear and entered the water, which was shallow enough to walk through and retrieve the beaver. The close-up shot showed the beaver was as heavy as the one Benji had caught. After getting back on shore and dressing quickly, what seemed like a near withdrawal from the competition turned around within a day or two, showcasing the charm of living alone in the wilderness. After 21 days, 8 contestants remained. Benji, after checking a camera placed next to the beaver's entrails, found a black bear had come to eat, attracted by the smell. Although he planned to use the bear as a long-term food source, the current high temperature risked spoiling the meat before he could smoke it. So, he decided to wait another half-month until the temperature dropped below freezing. Now living in a large shelter that required much effort to maintain, Benji decided to build a new one, similar to a yurt. He would use 3 logs tied at the top to form a tripod, fix each side with acorns, wrap it with canvas, and fill the gaps with branches. Benji also had an urgent task. He needed to sharpen his axe in his new shelter, adhering to the principle that a sharp axe makes chopping easier. After setting up a temporary workbench, he cleaned the beaver skin, which would otherwise go to waste. He removed the fat cleanly, which was substantial enough to render nearly half a pot of oil, providing at least 15,000 calories. At 4:30 p.m., a grouse suddenly entered the camp. Despite already having beaver meat, Benji knew there was no such thing as too much food in the wilderness. He grabbed his bow and arrow and shot at it. The bad news was he missed, but the good news was the grouse didn't fly far. He followed and shot another arrow, hitting it perfectly this time. While other contestants were starving, Benji's food supply was almost overflowing. As long as nothing unexpected happened, reaching the top 3 seemed likely. In the evening, he fried the grouse meat in beaver fat, and the taste was indescribably delicious, bursting with flavor in his mouth. Meanwhile, Jessie had been building a jungle cabin for weeks and still had much to finish. Spotting a grouse nearby, she shot an arrow, but it veered off, embedding in the cabin's frame. In contrast, Adam's archery skills were much better. After daily morning practice, he could now headshot squirrels. Preparing to head home, he spotted another nearby and shot again, significantly improving his accuracy. Today's hunting was fruitful. Juan was the most energy-efficient contestant, even drinking raw water to save time and effort. As a Mexican, his stomach handled it well, having done so for 10 years. Recently, he hadn't eaten much, finding no animal traces in the woods and considering fishing at the river, suspecting the fish had moved to warmer, deeper waters. He started building a dock by tying a beam between 2 tripods and extending wood into the water, allowing him to finish the dock from the shore. Suddenly, a seal appeared on the river, likely scaring off nearby fish. After it left, Juan stood on the dock, casting his line, and soon his luck turned. Bait wasn't in the water long before a fish bit. Though not large, he consistently caught more. totaling 6 trout in 2 hours. A great haul. Juan quickly made a fire, cooked a full pot with berries, planning to eat 3 trout today and 3 tomorrow, replenishing his protein and fat.